it for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-K.
All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K, it's the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk facts.
We're giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
Play it on the car ride, play it when you lounge. X and O, you know that we can hold it down. Shout out to my man Sammy, got it off the ground. And to all the listeners tuned in right now, got debates, analysis, and speculation. This is sports talk for the new generation. You know where to find us, got a reputation. Sick podcast, your #1 sports destination.
Giving all our devotion, riding high on this wave of emotion. Going all out, yeah, cause this is our time. No, ain't no stopping us till we reach the finish line. All in, we came here to win. We're gonna give everything. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick. On fire, we're ready to fight. We'll bring the house down tonight. S-I-C-K on the run. S-I-C-K, sick.
S-I-C-K is the sickest podcast. Tune in for the audio, or you can even watch back. Giving players all the props, or put them on blast. We don't give no hot takes, only talk back. S-I-C-K,
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 S-I-C-k.
S-I-C-K.
Turn up your volume. Because you're about to listen to The Sick Podcast. With Tony Marinaro.
55 seconds left in the penalty, a minute and 27 seconds left in regulation time. Boston 4, Montreal 3. Lafleur coming out rather gingerly on the right side. He gives it into Lemaire, back to Lafleur. Oh!
The sickest Montreal Canadiens podcast.
You're in the spot!
Sports entertainment like no other.
Rejoint, on lui fait perdre la rondelle, une passe devant. Et c'est le dégagement et ce sera la victoire des Canadiens. Stanley pour les Canadiens, leur 23e de l'histoire.
You found the dogs! John, you found the dogs! He found the dogs! And all together, they worked a young team to the top. And now, a 24th Stanley Cup banner will hang from the rafters of the famous Forum in Montreal. The Canadiens win the Stanley Cup!
Brought to you by Energy Transportation Group. Driven to be different. La Vida TV. Embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination. It's gonna be sick.
Marinaro, the Sick Podcast on this Monday, November 18th. The Montreal Canadiens had a 7:30 p.m. Eastern time start versus Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, and the Edmonton Oilers tonight. And guess what? Marty St. Louis has been talking about having a very good defensive game, but trying to generate enough scoring chances and trying to get enough goals to win those games. Up until tonight, I think the Montreal Canadiens had lost most of those tight defensive games. They just weren't able to generate any offense. They weren't able to generate any in the first either, but they were able to get a goal in the second, 2 goals in the third, and they shut out the Edmonton Oilers. What a performance by Samuel Montembeault. I'm pumped to talk to Pierre McGuire. Here he is with the McGuire Report.
The McGuire Report. Presented by Vago Italian.
And yes, the McGuire Report is presented by Restaurant Vago, open 23 years. I know that it's one of Pierre's favorites because he's been going there for a very long time. He could tell you that. I'm not making that up. His mom loves it there as well. So does his entire family. Longevity. When you last 23 years, not many restaurants are open that long. And fortunately for them, Vago has been able to pull it off. Private dining rooms for any occasion, birthday, engagements, corporate meetings, plenty of free parking after 6 p.m. Open Monday to Saturday evening, lunch Tuesday to Friday. Fresh quality ingredients, old world Italian classics, and new Italian. Come see Tommaso, the most popular man in Westmount. And of course, a pretty popular guy as well is Angelo. It's Restaurant Vago. Jot down their number and call them for reservations. If we can bring it up one more time, Shane Gaumont, Master Control. The number is 514-846-1414. Pierre, I'm really pumped to talk to you tonight because, and first of all, good evening. How are you?
I'm excellent, and it's great to talk to you, Tony. I'm very excited to talk about this game, too.
Okay, because it was yesterday morning that I joined Chris Nyland on his Raw Knuckles podcast, and he's got one that goes every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern live. And Knuckles was saying, and he's been telling me this for a while, you know, the Canadiens have to find a playing identity, and maybe with the way their team is, maybe they should tighten up defensively because they don't right now, not at this stage anyway, have the horses to probably go up against the elite of the National Hockey League. Try and get their sticks down on the ice, try and pick off a lot of pucks, maybe be aggressive on the forecheck, try and get turnovers in the neutral zone, try to create counterattacks. And you know what? They were trying. Tonight I saw a lot of that, Pierre.
Well, you just said something that's really important. So did Chris Nyland. The truth is, Tony, the first goal is a great forecheck play by Slafkovsky, forces a turnover, puck goes back, Gallagher gets a deflection. The second goal, scored by Kaiden Guhle, is off a really good forecheck by Cole Caufield against Leon Draisaitl. So forecheck, turnover, quick counter, move the puck, get a goal. So it's exactly what you and Chris Nyland have been talking about. I'm watching that game right from the first period. I know the first period for either team was not a Rembrandt. There was not a lot of artistic impression in that first period. But I'm saying to myself, okay, this reminds me of when Jacques Lemaire was coaching. This reminds me of when Claude Julien was coaching. This reminds me of when Alain Vigneault and Dave King were coaching back in the early or the late 1990s. This reminds me a ton of the late Pat Burns' teams. So is there going to be a ton of artistic impression for most of the game? No. Are they going to give up a lot of odd man rushes? No. Are they going to congest in front of the net and block a lot of shots? Yes. Are they going to be opportunistic and take advantage of forecheck opportunities? Yes. So everything you kind of want to see, the way those old coaches that I just described coached, that's how Marty St. Louis' team is starting to play. So the identity is becoming apparent.
Pierre, it's 2 wins in a row for the Montreal Canadiens now, but look, we're not going to get too excited yet because it's a small sample size. But at the same time, should the Canadiens happen to turn around their season, I think that this is a night that we're going to have to remember. Jot this one down, folks, on Monday, November 18. Why am I saying that? Because once again, up until tonight, the Canadiens had played some defensive hockey games. They played one in Minnesota last week on Thursday, and they lost by a score of 3-0. They played one probably about 5 days before that in Toronto, and they lost by a score of 4-1. They played one 4 days before that versus Calgary, and they lost by a score of 3-2 in overtime. They played another one 3 days before that in Pittsburgh, and they lost by a score of 3-1. It seemed like when they were playing defensive hockey games, they were losing them. And Pierre, if you want to sell this to your team, if they say, well, yeah, okay, you're selling us something, but we're losing anyway, the heck with that. I don't want to play defensive hockey. I want to try and pad my stats as much as I can. I want to play in offensive games. They're a lot more fun. There's that risk, I think, of losing players. I could be wrong. You tell me. You spent time behind the bench. I didn't. But when you play a late game like this and you buy what the coach is selling and it leads to a 3-0 win, and in the process, Cole Caufield gets an assist, and Nick Suzuki gets an assist, and Jake Evans gets a goal, and Brendan Gallagher gets a goal, and Slafkovsky has a really good game, and all the big horses are all pluses, and they all have a good game. That could be contagious. They might look at each other and say, hey, you know what? What the coach has been trying to sell, we get it now. It's working. Let's do it.
Well, I'm with you on that 100%. Here's another thing to talk about, too. In the NHL, it's hard to let your players have a reward during the season because games stockpile pretty fast. They don't play again until Saturday night when they host Vegas. That's a big break by NHL standards. So the fact that the players get a reward for performing at the level you just talked about, Tony, I think that helps you a lot as you go along. And that was something I learned from Scotty Bowman a long time ago when I was working with him. But here's one other thing to think about, Tony. You said all the right things about the players and the turnovers and the forecheck and the big guys. How about if you're a defenseman for Montreal now, whether you're Mike Matheson or Kaiden Guhle or Cole Caufield, I was going to call him Cole Hutson, Lane Hutson. Cole's his brother, plays at BU. How about when you're one of those defensemen, David Savard, and you say, our forwards are helping us. Our forwards are taking away the shooting avenues from the point. Our forwards are doing a good job helping us out clear rebounds when there are rebounds. Our forwards are really supporting us off the cycle. You don't see as much time and space for the opposition, except for in the first period. I thought McDavid was running fast and footloose. Outside of that, the defensemen got to be saying, fellas, thanks so much. You guys are doing a great job insulating us. So I think there's a lot of positives come out of this. To me, the biggest one, the message that was sent from the coaches to the players and the fact they get a chance to have a reward. The next 5 days are going to be elite practices, and guys are going to feel real good about what they're starting to build.
Speaking about feeling really good about himself, Samuel Montembeault needed this one. Of course, he had, they had a couple of losses where he gave up a lot of goals. His goals against average got up. His save percentage took a beating. And all of a sudden, with the Four Nations Cup around the corner for Canada, he was probably not in the top three. Mind you, the good news for him is how many Canadian goalies are having a really good year. Not a great goals against average for Binnington, not a great goals against average for Adin Hill, not a great goals against average for Montembeault, not a great goals against average for Fleury. Neither of those goalies have great save percentage either. There's other goaltenders as well. Darcy Kemper, come see, come saw. Tonight, he did that against Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl and company, and more importantly, in front of Kyle Dubas, who was there doing some scouting for Team Canada.
Yeah, he's doing scouting. I don't think Kyle's going to have the ultimate voice in this whole thing. Doug Armstrong will. I think Kyle is doing more than just scouting for Team Canada. He's got situations at Pittsburgh he's got to put out pretty quick.
Yeah.
So that should be probably the last part of his meal ticket, is worrying about what's going on with Team Canada, an event that's going to happen in February. But I would say this. I think most of your premise is correct. Goaltending is clearly not a strength for Canada, but for Montembeault, he needed to have a bounce back, whether he plays for Canada or not. He's an important part of this thing going forward, at least until they get Jacob Fowler up and ready to go.
Pierre, when Kaiden Guhle blocked a shot from Evan Bouchard, the Oilers were on a power play. Josh Anderson was in the box because he had tied up Connor McDavid, and he blocked that shot. You want to see your players block shots, obviously, but you don't want to see your players get hurt. He went to the locker room. I'm like, I've seen this movie before, and I think I saw it. If memory serves me well, I think it was David Savard in Buffalo last season or Washington. Anyway, one of the two. Long story short, he ended up missing about 6 weeks. The Canadiens could really ill afford to lose a Kaiden Guhle. And the good news is when he came out in the second period, I mean, I was watching the game on television. I can sense a sigh of relief on the bench. I can imagine the guys. But that was, and then he comes back and he battles all night long. And the goal obviously was gravy. But what a game by Kaiden Guhle.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was talking about before. I think that Kaiden played his derriere off. He and Mike Matheson were outstanding. They got a lot of heavy minutes against the top-end players. For Edmonton, you talked about Connor McDavid, Leon Draisaitl, Zach Hyman. But, you know, I want to give also a bouquet out, which I think is really important. Early in the game, when it really matters, Zach Hyman was trying to create mayhem with his speed and his size. Arber Xhekaj steps up and pile drives him. Hard, clean, open ice hit. I know some people are speculating, oh, it was a little bit late. No, that was a good play. That's a good, hard play in the neutral zone. Can you imagine what it would have been like on the Canadiens bench to see that? You're talking about Arber stepping up on a 50-goal scorer from last year and putting him right down like a power window. It was really impressive.
Score is 0-0. Edmonton had pushed the pace in the first period. There was 2 minutes left in the first period. He delivers that hit. 2 minutes later, they go to the locker room, and the guys are probably jacked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, I've been there before. I've seen Alfie, you know, again, with our teams that were winning in Pittsburgh, when Alfie used to do that, or Bobby Airy would do that as a forward with an open ice hit, or Troy Loney. Just those are old names from the past, but guys I really have an affinity to because we won a lot together. And they were great. And when we would go back to the dressing room, you're so spot on, Tony. There's just a euphoria and enthusiasm. There's this belief because you can say, we stabilize them physically. Now we're going to take our skill and our speed to them and put the boots to them.
The Sick Podcast is brought to you in part by Energy Transportation Group, a leading full-service logistics provider serving all of North America, driven to be different. It's also brought to you in part by Playground. Step into the world-renowned poker experience at Playground, where free food and drinks at cash game tables, a bad beat jackpot, weekly promotions, daily tournaments, unmatched customer service await you. Why play anywhere else? Just minutes from downtown Montreal. Playground across the Mercier Bridge. And also brought to you in part by Bittt Tibi, who launched their new Ultra Lager. It's a refreshing, thirst-quenching beer. It's perfect for cool fall days. Only 90 calories, 2 grams of carbs, 4% ABV per can, available in a pack of 6 and 12 in grocery stores all around the province of Quebec. It's ultra light, ultra refreshing. Pierre, near the end of last season, Marty St. Louis talked about at one point having to flip the switch and do what we call hard coaching. Well, the example of that hard coaching that we got thus far this season came on Saturday night versus the Columbus Blue Jackets, where in the second period, he benched Juraj Slafkovsky, who's the first pick overall in the draft of several years ago. And Slafkovsky was benched for about 5 minutes. He then played a shift with the fourth line. Then he was benched for another 4 minutes and change, benched into the third period, then comes back, and he puts him back on his regular line. And Slafkovsky at the end of the game was asked about it and said, look, I wasn't having a good game. I wasn't performing well. I needed to get more implicated. You know what? Good call, good wake-up call, all that stuff. Said all the right things. He was in total agreement with the coach for benching him. And his attitude was good. And when something like that happens, right, you're curious to see how much character does this player have. Now, it's the next game. Is this player going to respond? Did he receive the message? Pierre, he's not on the score sheet tonight, Juraj Slafkovsky, right? But you talked about the Gallagher goal starting with Slafkovsky. He was very implicated in tonight's hockey game.
Oh, my gosh, 100%. The one thing is, I can tell when he's going to have a good game or a bad game. And I think Marty saying the weekend too. When he's standing still, just trying to utilize his size, that's not going to work. When he's moving his feet, and he was moving his feet most of the time tonight, and he's protecting the puck with that big, wide frame of his, you know he's going to have success. And at least he's going to make things happen. So when he's standing still like he was on Saturday night, he's not a real useful player. And as he gets older and stronger and smarter and wiser, and I think Saturday was a good lesson for him, he's going to do well. He's going to do real well. There's not a coach in the league that really wants to bench a player. I'm just telling you, Tony, you really don't want to. But the only way you can really punish a player is you either send him to the American Hockey League, and that's hard to do, especially with first overall picks, or you bench him, you sit him down. And I think Marty needed to get his attention because they need consistency from the player. And so sitting him down will lead to him being far more consistent as a player.
Pierre, let's take a look at the Montreal Canadiens lineup tonight, and here you have it. All right, Suzuki with Doc on his right, Slafkovsky on his left. Evans on the second line, centering Newhook on his right and Caufield on his left. Dvorak centering Gallagher on his right and Anderson on his left. Condotta with Armia and Heineman. Guhle Matheson was a pairing with Guhle on the left and Matheson on the right. Hutson, Savard, Xhekaj, and Struble. Barron, of course, sat this one out. In goal, Samuel Montembeault got the start. You know, Pierre, I want to talk about the fourth line for a second, because it was about a week ago that I was saying to you, you know what? There's a couple of teams in the National Hockey League. They have an identity on their fourth line, and the Canadiens don't have one yet. They have one in Laval. They don't have one on the first team. Ever since I said that, I mean, the last two games, I've really loved what I've seen from this fourth line. Condotta scores a goal last game. Heineman leads all Montreal Canadiens players with 5 hits tonight. Armia had a couple of assists last game. He was implicated tonight. They were deep in the forecheck. And you know, the Canadiens' best period of the night came in period number 3. And I think Edmonton probably pushed the pace more in the first period and in the second period. It all started with a tremendous shift by the fourth line, who pinned the Oilers in their zone the entire shift. And the Canadiens just seemed to gain momentum from that moment.
That's why they're called energy lines. I completely agree. We're also forgetting that Condotta had a breakaway in this game as well. He didn't capitalize on it. So there's a lot to like. And I remember talking to you and saying, Condotta's a player that can come up and play. I watched him play in the American Hockey League. He's a player, and I watched him play at University of Massachusetts at Lowell before the Canadiens signed him as a free agent, as an undrafted player out of college. He can definitely be a depth reserve type player that can provide energy. He's good on faceoffs. He can kill penalties. He's strong in the puck. He's got a big frame. He fits the profile. Heineman's speed and hockey sense fits the profile. Armia, when he's playing, like you talked about, the 2 assists on Saturday night, he makes a difference. There are games when he sleepwalks, and that's when you get frustrated. But when he's playing like he's playing now, and I think he's energized, it's really positive. It's really good to see. I think the Canadiens, again, Tony, I'm not a homer. You know it, and most of the fans here know it. But I'm telling you, this team is being built properly. And I know people want instantaneous results. That doesn't happen in a rebuild. It's going to happen, and I think now they're starting to form the identity that's going to allow them long-term to be very successful.
Pierre, what's your comment on what Andre Tourigny had to say on BPM Sports Radio about a week or two ago, saying that a full rebuild takes anywhere between 8 to 11 years to see the fruits of its labor? That sounds long.
Yeah, I don't buy that, because the rebuild in Pittsburgh started in 2005 when they won the lottery. And they got Crosby. The year before, they took Malkin, and they were playing back-to-back Stanley Cups in 08 and 09. They lost in 08 to Detroit. They won in 09 in Detroit. They basically set themselves up for almost 2 decades of success. So, with all due respect, and Andre's a friend of mine, I respectfully don't agree on that. The New York Rangers are in this supposed rebuild that was started by the president of hockey operations of the Montreal Canadiens, Jeff Gordon.
Yeah,
they've been a very dynamic team for a long time. So with all due respect, I don't agree with that at all.
Okay, perfect. Now, The Rangers, I think, are a great example, a very good example. I can't speak for Andre, but if I would, he would probably say to you, yep, but Pierre, they won a lottery and got Sidney Crosby, who's a generational talent, and they got Evgeny Malkin, who's a number one centerman on probably any team in the National Hockey League for about 15 years.
Well, how do you quantify the New Jersey Devils?
Yeah.
I mean, I can go back to the LA Kings. I can go back to the Chicago Blackhawks. If you really want to go down that road, I can play that game too.
Yeah.
And I don't know, and again, I don't mean any disrespect to Andre. He just got in the league not that long ago. I don't know his reference points on rebuilds. He was a very successful junior coach, very, very, very successful. I have a ton of respect for him. I'm not sure that amount of time there's no GM or coach that would last that long in a rebuild. That's my point.
Well, it's an interesting comment from him, and it's an interesting comment from you, because it has a lot of people saying, hold on a second. You're probably going to end up losing players to free agency at that point. Like how, you're going to have to win before that, right? Because 8 to 11 years is a long time. The players that you bring in, you sign them to 8-year deals. Next thing you know, boom, they probably have to move on. But anyway, how long do you think, for those who are listening and those who are watching right now, if this is done properly, and obviously there's going to be some hiccups along the way, and there probably have been already, but if this is done as well as it can be done, what are we talking about in terms of A, being in the playoffs, in terms of B, winning a playoff round or two, in terms of C, being extremely competitive for years to come?
Well, I wouldn't touch the last two in terms of winning a round or winning the cup, but I would say playoffs, and I don't think they're a playoff team this year, but I think next year is when it starts. I think that's when the pressure starts to really multiply on the players, on the coaches, on the management team. They've had more than enough time now. They're building a solid foundation in Laval. They've got solid prospects. That outside of the American Hockey League, just talking about where they are in college, where they are in Russia. That they've got a lot going on, Tony, that's very positive. And so I would say, the rest of this year is a building year, and then it starts to get serious next year, very serious.
Pierre, I think Marty St. Louis coached his best game of the season tonight. And I think it's the night where his players worked their hardest. And maybe that has to happen for Marty St. Louis to coach his best game of the season. The two probably go hand in hand, right? And he said, he's been telling us, and I've been one to criticize the defensive structure or lack thereof. And he has said that playing tight defensive hockey and having great defensive coverage starts with attitude. Tonight they had attitude and they had effort, and I think it was the best game that he coached all season, Pierre.
There are a few things. Well, he coached a good game. I would cede you that, but I also think he probably coached some pretty darn good practices, because you don't just fix your in-zone coverage and neutral zone coverage in a game situation. It starts in practice, and it starts immediately in practice if you put attention to detail on it. So what we talked about last week, they give up the blue line far too easily. Against a fast team like Edmonton, they didn't do that tonight because the defensemen had the support of the forwards. You want to defend against a cycle, you take away time and space between the hash mark and the icing line. They did that phenomenally well. You want to deny point shots and take away second chance opportunities, you take away the shooting avenue, and if the puck does get by, you got enough bodies down low so that when the puck comes free, you're there to clear it. They did all three of those things masterfully. So I cede you the point on, yes, he coached a good game, but I'm going to say the good coaching in the game comes from some elite practices that they must have had.
Is there something they didn't do?
I still don't like the power play without Lane Hutson. I'm sorry. I've been telling you this since last summer. We talked about it a lot. You asked, where's Lane Hutson going to fit, Pierre? It's going to be on your number one power play. And this is not I'm not trying to beat up anybody. I'm just trying to tell you the facts is that the power play looks way better when Lane's on there than when he's not.
Yeah.
And I think they need to do it. Look, I thought, and I told you this, Tony, and I mean it sincerely. I think their power play can be 23% or better this year. They're hovering right there. They're between 22.3 and 23.5, almost on an every other day basis. It's exactly where I thought it would be. I think if they have Lane on the first power play, it's above 23 the whole year. If they don't, then I think it teeters between maybe 21 to 23, depending on whether they go for 3 or 0 for 5.
When I asked you about the power play on Thursday,
Yep.
It was coming off of a lackluster effort by Kirby Dach. And you said you would have Lane Hutson replace Mike Matheson. You would have Suzuki, Caufield, and Slafkovsky. And then as for the fifth player, well, he's not here right now, but if he would be, you liked Joshua Roy. And if he wouldn't, you brought up even a Harvey Bernard's name, and you said, why? Puck retrieval. There's loose pucks. You have to work. You have to go get them. You have to recover those loose pucks. So Patrick Liney's been skating, and today he was doing a lot of it with Adam Nicholas, who's working on him. It looks like Patrick Liney is going to be back. I mean, we don't have a timeline here, but I think it's safe to say in the next couple of weeks he should be back unless there's no setback. Would Liney be on your first wave of your power play?
100%.
So that would be your power play. It would be Lane Hutson, Cole Caufield, Nick Suzuki, Slafkovsky, and Patrick Liney.
Yep.
All right. And where do you have the guys set up?
Well, Caufield would be on top of the circle for the one-timer on the left side. I'd have Liney on the other side. I'd have Suzuki probably playing the bumper, Slafkovsky jamming the net, and Lane up high.
Yeah, I got to tell you something. And by the way, this is no slight on Mike Matheson, who played a heck of a hockey game tonight.
It's one of
the best games Matheson has played this season. He had an assist. He played 24 minutes and 3 seconds. Of course, he was out there every time McDavid was out there, and he finished the night with +3, which was absolutely amazing. But Pierre, you talked about Connor McDavid early on in the first period going to town. Like he was showing the exceptional talent that he has, right? I got to tell you, there was a lot of talent on the ice tonight, but for me, everyone looked the same, but two players, McDavid and Hutson. Hutson has that it factor that great players in this league have. He has it. He tries stuff. He pulls stuff off when he tries it. The puck's like glued to his stick. He's shifty. There's a buzz in the building when he picks up that puck. So I totally understand your admiration for Lane Hutson, Pierre. You're not the only one. At one point, they looked over at Knobloch on the bench when Hutson drew a penalty. And I think he said, and I would imagine he knows him already, but if he didn't, I think he said, who the hell is this guy? Because Lane Hutson was making moves out there that were unbelievable.
Yeah. I've seen the movie a lot when he was at BU. I saw the movie a lot when he was at the United States National Team Development Program. That's why when the Canadiens took him, I said, don't worry about his size. He's not going to be out there. Look at tonight, okay? I'll use an example.
Yeah.
Mike Matheson and Kaiden Guhle are out there defending a 2-goal lead when they pulled the goalie with about 5.5 or 6 minutes to go, Edmonton. You won't see Lane Hutson on the ice in those situations. He'll never be on the ice in the last 2 minutes of a game when it's a 1 or a 2-goal spread.
Yeah.
On the positive side. They're starting to manipulate their bench the right way too. And I think that is really encouraging going forward because the coaches are figuring out the identity of all these players and the players are figuring out what the coach needs from them. Jake Evans is a good example, Tony. Jake Evans, I know everybody says, oh, he's your second center. Jake Evans is a Swiss Army knife. He can play second center. He can play third center. He can play fourth center. You could have him out there with Suzuki killing penalties or on the ice at the end of the game defending a lead. He wins faceoffs. Winning faceoffs in the NHL is a huge, huge. Teams spend so much money trying to find guys that can win faceoffs at over 52%. It's a hard thing to do, Tony. It's a lot harder than people think.
He always plays with a lot of heart and a lot of consistency. This year, he has extra motivation, Pierre.
Yeah,
His contract is up at the end of the year. So I'm going to ask you, and I get it, it's coming off of one of Evans' good games, but I think almost every game he's had this year has been a good game. He's been one of their most consistent performers by far. So, Pierre, knowing that the Montreal Canadiens have Nick Suzuki at center, you have two players who can play center, but have probably shown us that they're more comfortable on the wing right now, which is Dach and Newhook. You have another player who plays center who was sent back to Sweden. We're talking about Oliver Kapanen. Mm-hmm. You have another Owen Beck, who's with the Laval Rocket, who's probably the closest to get called up. And you'll have Michael Hage at one point here. My question to you is, you bring back Jake Evans, you give him a contract extension, and if so, How many years are we talking here? What are we looking at?
So here's how his negotiation, I think, will work, because Kent's an agent and he's been on both sides now. And it's really important. Being on both sides helps a lot in these kinds of negotiations. He's going to be a comparable negotiation. So if I were Kent, what I'd be doing is I'd look at 5 players around the league that are about the same amount of ice time as him, about the same role as him, about the same point totals as him, and try to do the comparable and make it fit. And I think you'll find that most players like that are coming in between 2.5 and about 3.5 million a year, somewhere in there. Now, there may be some other outliers where maybe the points are higher than what he has and the ice time's the same. The one thing he has over most people, face-off wins when the Canadiens are shorthanded, and face-off percentage. Those are up high, really high. So that's something that his agent will use as a marketing tool against the team to try to elevate his salary. It'll be an interesting negotiation. I don't think the Canadiens will be out brain-powered in that negotiation. I think, again, I stress this point, Kent's been on both sides of those types of negotiations now. So I think they'll figure that one out. I don't think it's going to be that hard.
I think he's a fourth-line centerman on a team that wins the Stanley Cup, but on this team that doesn't win the Stanley Cup, like you said, he can play fourth line, but he can play third line and he can play second line. I think he's going to get himself a pretty good deal. I think they're going to want to pay him less than they play Christian Dvorak, who makes 4.4.
Well, that was a deal they didn't do, though.
Correct. That was a deal they didn't do. But I think he's going to be able to get more than $3 million.
Well, it's going to be close. I said 2.5 to 3.2.
How about $3 million? Yeah.
Yeah, it might be a little bit more. So then I'll play the other side of it for a second. It comes down to years, because your point's very relevant. When's Owen Beck going to be ready? Suzuki's with you for a long time now. What are you doing with Kirby Dach? You didn't bring him in here to be a second-line right winger. Kirby Dach was brought here to be a second-line center. And where does Owen Beck fit in? So if Owen Beck's going to be your 3 for now, where do you do with Jake? Jake's going to be your 4. So how about too many teams that are paying their fourth line center over $3 million?
Well, look, I don't know if I would give him a long-term deal, with all due respect to him, but can this work as a comparable? In this offseason of 2021, the New York Jets signed Adam Lowry to a 5-year deal at 16.25. Like I said, I'm not certain I'm going 5 years on Jake Evans, but it's a cap hit of $3.25 million. Is it somewhat of a comparable? Somewhat?
It is and it isn't. So the difference is the size quotient on Adam Lowry's significantly tilted towards him, and the leadership quotient is hugely slighted towards Adam Lowry being a team leader, a captain. So I think those are things. But in terms of actual performance, number for number, that'd be a pretty close one. And that's why, again, what did I say? 2.5 to 3.2 million.
Yeah.
We're pretty close on that, and that's without doing the research.
Yeah, no, listen, I get it, and I totally agree with you. Adam Lowry's got big leadership skills. He's centering one of the best third lines in hockey right now, and he's a big man. I was looking more at third line player at a production of around 35, 37 points per season. That's what I was trying to base
and that's what I'm saying. That's a good comparison. So I'll give you one. And it's not, but you saw Derek Ryan play tonight. Derek Ryan's a fourth line center for the Edmonton Oilers. And I think he's getting a little less than $1 million a year, somewhere in there. Now, he's a lot older than Jake. He's, got way more miles on the odometer. His role is pretty similar to Jake's when they're both playing as fourth line players. But I think Jake's got more value to Montreal than what Derek Ryan would have, especially at this advanced age in his career.
Yeah. Good stuff.
That's what I'm saying. So when you're doing these breakdowns, you got to look around. It's a fun thing to do, and I try to do it a lot with different players, but it does take time. You just can't say, "Oh, that's the guy," because there's maybe 3 or 4 that you forget.
For everyone watching, I want you to already prepare your questions for Pierre McGuire. Start sending them out there right now. Start texting them. Start shooting them out there on YouTube. Start shooting them out there on Facebook. And Shane Gaumont and Master Control is going to stockpile a bunch of them. And we're going to ask Pierre McGuire probably in about 5 or 6 minutes from now some of your questions. So it'll be time to ask Pierre. In the meantime, I want to talk to you about Accent Insurance because they are also a sponsor of the Sick Podcast. And you know that all insurance isn't created equal, and you know where to find the right solution for you. Accent Insurance. Accent doesn't sell insurance. They shop insurance for you to find the right product right on the money, whatever your insurance needs, home, automobile, or business. Visit their website, www.accentassurance.com. Jot down their number. You can call them tomorrow, 514-363-3636. And a shout out to Betway, who's a leading global online betting and gaming brand. If you want to put $1 or $2 on Alexander Ovechkin hitting a certain amount of goals, by the way, Pierre, the game is midway through, and 39-year-old Alexander Ovechkin, who led the league in scoring tonight before the game, already has 2 goals. 15 on the season. Follow your gut instinct. Go with Betway. Go on Betway.com or scan the QR code to join the action. Must be 18 years old and over and play responsibly. Is he like Popeye and he eats his spinach every day or what? What's the story with this guy?
It's just amazing. You know what, Tony? I got a quick story for you. I think he was about 14 or 15 years old. I was living in Toronto, and Scotty called me up, and he said, "Hey, Pierre, I want to go to a game with you." I said, "Which game?" And he said, "I want to go watch a kid play from Russia." I said, "Really?" He says, "Yeah." So we went and watched Ovechkin play on a Russian touring team. And we both looked at each other after the game. We're like, this is unbelievable how good this guy is. Like, you couldn't believe how good he was.
Wow.
And then it wasn't long after he was 16 years old, and I was doing the World Junior with Gord Miller in Halifax. And he was on a gold medal winning team as a 16-year-old from Russia. And then the next year, he was in Helsinki. That's the year the Americans won for the first time. And the year after that, it was the 05 World Junior in Grand Forks. That's the best World Junior, best on best ever, because we had the nuclear winter, the lockout. And that's the game, the gold medal game, actually, where Bergeron and Corey Perry hit Ovechkin so hard they put him out after the first period. He separated his shoulder.
Wow. You know, on the weekend when he scored his hat trick, he was in pretty elite company to do so, doing so at 39 years of age. And several players did it at 39 years of age, 40 years of age. Jaromir Jagr did it at 42 years of age, okay, which was pretty amazing. Nick Lidstrom, a defenseman, did it at 40 years of age, which is pretty cool as well. But tonight, Pierre, I have something here that I jotted down, which I thought was pretty important because he's in Jaromir Jagr company again. I think you're really going to like this. Let me see if I can find it here. Yeah, I should have it right here. Okay. All right. Arda Okal tweeted, Ovechkin has tied another NHL record. Do you know what that record would be, Pierre? That he has matched the great Jaromir Jagr. Okay, here you go. By scoring tonight on Connor Ingram, Ovechkin has now scored on 178 different goalies in his NHL career, matching Jaromir Jagr. So Jaromir Jagr and Alex Ovechkin have scored on 178 different goalies in the National Hockey League. Isn't that something?
Great stat. That's awesome, actually.
Yeah.
You know, the last time I talked to Jaromir was at Mario Lemieux's fantasy camp last spring. And Tony, I'm not kidding you. Mario and I both talked about it. Jaromir, his hands are still the same. His passing ability is still the same. His ability to score is still the same. Does he have the same velocity in his skating? No. But his puck protection skills and his passing skills and his hand skills, they haven't diminished at all. Like, Tony, I skated a lot of hours with him over time. And I'm just telling you, I was there with him in camp, and I was like, whoa, he's still going. You know, he's 50-plus years old. It's unbelievable. He was a 5th overall draft pick in the 1990 draft. You know, it's unbelievable when he's still playing. He plays on a super high level.
Yeah. For many years, he was my favorite player in the National Hockey League. For many years.
Well, you know what? I'm happy to hear you say that, because one of the coolest parts about traveling with our good Penguin teams, every city we went to, we had so many good players. It was cool to see the young kids come around our bus just so they could get Mario's autograph or Jaromir's autograph, or both. Jaromir was a target. He was only 18 and 19 years old. It was just amazing. Yeah. And Tony, he used to eat these gigantic Kit Kat chocolate bars. And he would go out by himself, and he'd just go grab these, and he'd walk back to the hotel eating his Kit Kats. You know, it's pretty funny to see. We used to laugh a lot watching him do that.
Hold on a second. Not only do I eat Kit Kats, but I keep them in the freezer. Don't ask me why, but I keep my chocolate in the freezer. All right, so that's for your Jaromir Jagr. And Pierre, the only reason why I told you is should you be in Tremblant one summer and Jaromir decides to stop by for a visit, don't forget me. All right, okay. Here's something encouraging. For a while, we've been talking about the fact that the Canadiens, they got some small players on this team. Well, Cole Caufield outmuscled and stripped a great player, a bigger player, a stronger player of the puck. I guess there's that attitude and that desire that Marty St. Louis was talking about. Marty St. Louis last year said that his objective and his goal was to make Cole Caufield a much better hockey player, a much more complete hockey player over 200 feet of the ice. Pierre, I saw glimpses of it last year. We definitely saw it tonight. So here's a night where Cole Caufield doesn't score. Years ago, one of the things we were told was, yeah, he's an amazing goal scorer, but if he doesn't score, he's of no use to your team, right? Did you hear that? Did you ever hear that? Right? We've heard that from about several players, right?
A lot of people.
Cole Caufield tonight didn't score. I thought he was one of the best Montreal Canadiens tonight.
He played with an edge. There's no question about that. And I think he is getting better. One of the neat things, Tony, I haven't spoken to you since the Hall of Fame induction. And I would just tell you this. I had a chance to be with Shea Weber. I had a chance to be with Brendan Gallagher. I had a chance to be with Nick Suzuki. And it was kind of a little quiet meeting away from everybody else. We were in a corner of the great hall in the Hall of Fame. And all it was about was pride in wearing the Canadian sweater, leadership, and how to do it. And I just sat there and listened. I marveled at it. And I know Cole was hanging out with those guys. Now, he wasn't there when I was there. And I think there's a lot that's been passed on here on the off days. And that's why I said before to you, you win a game like tonight and you don't play till Saturday, there's a reward that more times than not NHL players don't get. And I think it's going to be great for their development. But Cole definitely influenced that game without goal scoring tonight.
So was Marc Bergevin right when he acquired Shea Weber? At that point, he said, and he continued to say on several occasions thereafter, that what Shea Weber was going to implement in terms of leader and culture and bring to that Montreal Canadiens locker room was going to be passed on for years to come. You believe that?
There's something to that. I do believe that. Again, I'm biased, and I want to be totally transparent with your viewers and listeners. Back when Shea was a junior player in Kelowna, Mark Habscheid was their coach, and they used to bring me in there to skate and work practices for them. I was working on TV, so whenever I had a game in Edmonton, Calgary, or Vancouver, they would bring me in there, and I would run practices. And I marvel at how good Duncan Keith was and how good Shea Weber was. They were both on the same team. And you could tell Keith led one way. He was a different kind of a leader. He led by example. Weber led by example, but he also led by how he lived. You know, how he lived his life. He's a phenomenal person. He really is. So I think there's something to what Marc Bergevin said. I really do. I think there's something to that.
All right. So Cole Caufield and strips Draisaitl of that puck in period number 2. A pass to Evans, gives it back to Caufield, gives it to Kaiden Guhle, and I think Calvin Pickard could have done better on that one.
So
He'd like to have that one back.
They call that getting beat on the American League side. If you're a goalie and you're giving up a ton of goals like that, you're not staying in the NHL. You're going to the American Hockey League. That's a stoppable puck. But again, it's a great forecheck play. You don't take that away from Cole and what he was able to do.
I liked Jake Evans when he shoots the puck into the empty net, and he's telling it, okay, just go. Kind of like curlers do when they're trying to. It was amazing. I thought And it looked so many happy faces tonight. Once again, it was a big-time hockey game by the Montreal Canadiens. Connor McDavid, by the way, wow, he's something. But 22-42, he was a -2. How many times does this guy get shut out? Doesn't happen often. And considering I don't have him in my pool, I'm pretty happy he did get shut out tonight. Draisaitl, 21-48. He was -3. The shots on goal were Edmonton 30-27. Let's bring up the game sheet and let's bring up the final stats if we can here. All right. Okay. No, that's the okay. Well, that's the event summary. We could take a look at that. And what that will show you is Matheson had an assist +3, 24-03. That's a number that you want to pay attention to. Nick Suzuki was the only Montreal Canadian that was good in the circle tonight, as well as Condotta, who won 4 of 5. Condotta did, which is amazing. Jake Evans won 4 of 10. Should be noted that they went up against 2 pretty good centermen in this hockey game, right? Christian Dvorak only won 3 of 9. Alex Newhook won 1 of 6, and Nick Suzuki won 5 of 9. Once again, 5 hits in this hockey game for Heineman, 4 hits in this hockey game for Arber Xhekaj, and Kirby Dach didn't have any shots in this hockey game, which I think is a little bit disappointing. Jake Evans had a goal, 1 assist, 2 points. He was a +2. Yoel Armia was a +1, a +2 for Kaiden Guhle, a +1 for Slafkovsky, a +2 for Suzuki, a +1 for Newhook, a +1 for Caufield, and a +1 for Brendan Gallagher, who also scored. So Canadians goals, Brendan Gallagher scores the first, Kaiden Guhle scores the second, and Jake Evans in an empty net the third. You know, Gallagher's goal, his deflection, man, is he, over the last 2 or 3 years, has he been getting really good at deflecting pucks?
Yes, there's no question. So I've been watching a lot like everybody else, and the one thing I'm saying, like, I'm seeing a little Ryan Smith in there, just a smaller version. When Ryan was playing, especially in Edmonton, you know, his skill level around the crease was unbelievable with his hand-eye coordination. You know, everybody looks at Thomas Holmstrom and what he used to do in Detroit, or Dave Andrechuk, what he used to do, especially early in his career in Buffalo. Those are all pretty good role models for that crease-type player that deflects. Brendan's getting there. He's getting into that category. He really is.
Yeah, a couple of Alberta boys there. Brendan from Edmonton and Ryan from Banff. If you have your questions for Pierre McGuire, I think it's about that time that we get to them. Shane Camo at Master Control, do you have some questions for Pierre? Emil says, Pierre, how good is Sam Harris?
He's a Montreal Canadiens draft pick that plays at the University of Denver. He's the leading goal scorer, tied as the leading goal scorer in NCAA hockey right now. I saw him play twice live earlier this season. He's got an opportunity to be a very good player. He still needs some time, but he's got an opportunity to be a very good player.
Next, Habs fan number 1, where will Liney be in the lineup?
Well, I'd have to think, I could be wrong, but I'd have to think Kirby Dach, Liney, and probably Newhook, which is something we talked about in the offseason when they got Patrick Liney. I don't know exactly how they want to set it up, but I'm going to stay on this, Tony. I don't think the Canadiens brought in Kirby Dach to be a second-line right winger or a first-line right winger. I think they brought him in to be a second-line center iceman.
Perfect. No problem. And I agree with you. That's what they brought him in to be. But if they realize that he's more comfortable on the wing, at what point do you make the determination?
Well, that's going to be something they're going to have to figure out here pretty quick when Liney comes back. I think Liney's still a little ways away. I know he's skating and everything else.
Yeah.
I don't think you make that decision until you see where your lineup is.
Wouldn't it be best that Patrick Liney and Cole Caufield, the 2 best shooters on the Montreal Canadiens and the 2 best natural goal scorers, be on separate lines?
Yes.
Yeah. All right. Next.
I would like to see Cole back with Suzuki and Slafkovsky.
Okay. Next question. Eric Martin says, what can Lane Hutson do to develop a better shot?
Get in the shooting room, and every team in the league has a shooting room, and it will continue to evolve and get better as you get stronger. But it's not so much about the velocity. I know everybody wants to see like that Evan Bouchard. They call it the Bouch bomb. Everybody wants to see that cannonading blast that the great Danny Gallivan used to call. It's not so much. I coached a lot of games against Raymond Bourque when he was at the top of the food chain for defensemen offensively in the league. And he would get pucks through. It's about getting pucks to the net. It's not so much about the velocity. It's about getting them to the net. And that's where I think Lane will continue to evolve and get better and better. And then the velocity will come as he gets older.
I used to love when Nicholas Lidstrom used to intentionally miss shots so that they can go wide, bank them off the boards, and go the other way.
Especially old Joe Louis. You know who taught him that was Chelios. Chris Chelios was a master at that. He probably, I can tell you, because I coached the Stanley Cup final against him in Old Chicago Stadium, and the boards were very much like that. You had to know when he shot the puck 9 times out of 10, he was doing it on purpose to shoot wide.
Pierre,
so you had to be aware.
Some people watching right now are younger than you and I. They never had a chance to see Chris Chelios play. And he used to take the stick and sometimes switch it over, and he would end up shooting with the other hand. It was unbelievable. Chris Chelios did that often.
There's a former Montreal Canadian captain that won a lot of Stanley Cups by the name of Yvon Cornway that used to do that coming down the wing.
Oh, wow. Pretty cool.
When I was a kid watching that, it was unbelievable to watch him do that.
Speaking of unbelievable, did you see Evgeny Kuznetsov's goal from earlier today in the KHL?
The old bird day.
Oh, that was
pretty good. It was pretty good.
That was unbelievable. Hey, I know we're taking Montreal Canadiens questions. We're going to get back, but I have to ask you this. The Bruins lost 5-1 at home to Columbus.
I was watching both games, Montreal and Boston. Yeah.
Is Jimmy Montgomery in trouble?
I don't know if he's in trouble or not, but here's what I do think. I think before they do anything with the coach, they're going to do something personnel-wise. They try to bring up a minor league tough guy, Jeff Isle, tonight, and he's a tough kid. I watched him play in the American League a lot. Really tough kid. And he fought Matthew Olivier in the first period, and he was running around pretty good, and he got the Columbus Blue Jackets a little off kilter, but I think they're going to do something personnel-wise before they do anything somewhere else.
You know, I've seen this movie before when he sat Brad Marchand, when he sat David Pastrnak, and when he called both of them out. Sometimes it's kind of like a desperation move because you're starting to think the end is near. Jimmy's in the final year of his contract. They have not signed them to an extension. They lost 5-1 at home, and there were a lot of players who did not have a very good effort in that hockey game tonight.
And the fans, the one thing I do know about Boston, the owners pay attention to crowd reaction, and the fans were not happy tonight. I agree with you on that, Tony.
And neither were certain members of the media who were pretty influential in Boston as well. Anyway, enough with the Bruins. But I think Jim Montgomery is a great story, and I think he's a great coach. And I would not want to see him lose his job. All right, okay. On to the next questions. Here's one for you. In your opinion, is it more important to have 2 functional power plays or 1 strong one and 1 useless one? I don't think anyone has a goal of having a useless power play, Pierre, but I get his question.
I do too. I understand it. I'd like to have 1 elite power play and 1 useful power play.
Perfect.
I think it's really important. It's hard to do 2 elite power plays in the salary cap era. But, I watch a ton of college hockey, Tony, and everybody loads up on their first power play, and usually that's the one that gets shut down. And it's the second power play when they come out. They go in, they simplify things, they get pucks in the net rather than being fancy, and they score more times than not. And I think you can make the same kind of translation for an NHL team. But I think everybody would like to have 1 elite one and 1 very useful one.
The Maguire Report is brought to you by Restaurant Vago on Green Avenue, corner of the Maisonneuve. You can book your Christmas party, still room available at 514-846-1414. Jot it down for reservations on Open Table. It's once again at 1336 Green Avenue in Westmount. Have the veal chop tomahawk, best steak frites in town, 14-ounce New York strip with pepper sauce, and the best fries in town, and Pierre's favorite, the linguine vongole.
How do you know that?
White wine. Well, that's what they told me. So
it's true.
Yeah. I love linguine alle vongole. I love linguine alle vongole. All right, okay. Let's go with 3-4 more questions. Let's go. Tony Prigioniero. Pierre, if you would have to compare Jacob Fowler's style and pedigree to any NHL elite goalie, current or retired, who would it be?
Not only comparing styles, but mentally, I see a lot of Marty Brodeur. I really do. He's calm, cool, collected, and I can say that because I saw Marty when he was 16 and 17. I'm not saying he's going to be better than Marty as a goalie. I'm just saying mentally, he's like Marty. He got kicked out of a game this past weekend. He got suspended for once. So he's not playing Tuesday night tomorrow at Providence College, but he'll be playing this weekend against Northeastern in 2 games that are sold out one at BC, one at Northeastern, Friday at BC, Saturday at Northeastern. So I've known him a long time. I've watched him a lot. He's really a good goalie. He's tactical. He's athletic. He's flexible. And the thing to me that he does that's really impressive, timely saves, Tony. Timely saves. He's got this feel for the game and just makes timely saves.
And based on some video coverage that we saw from the Montreal Canadiens behind the scenes, as one scout put it, all he does is win hockey games.
That's the timely save.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable. Yeah. I'm telling you, Tony, I've been watching a long time. This guy's really good. He's really good.
Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Let's go back to the questions. Ted Stevens Go says, Pierre, you always mention that to build a team from scratch, you need to fill the 7-player profile. How many positions do the Habs have on that 7-player profile, Pierre?
Great question. So they have an elite puck-moving defenseman, I think, and a young guy, Cole Hudson. They got a shutdown defenseman.
Lane.
Oh, Lane, sorry.
That's
Cole,
okay.
Yeah. I'm watching too much PU.
Yeah, it's good. It's good.
Yeah, Lane, thank you. Lane Hutson. They've got a shutdown defenseman that's building, I think, in Kaiden Guhle. They've got, I think, one of the 2 centermen you have to have in Nick Suzuki. I think they have a power forward in Slafkovsky. They do not have the goaltender yet. And I think they have the specialist forward in Jake Evans. So they're getting there.
You don't have a 40-goal scorer as part of your...
That's the power forward.
Okay.
Forward.
Got it.
Think, but it's all part of it. So if you do the way Scotty and I came up with this down in Sarasota, Florida during 04-05, the nuclear winter, because we knew the cap was coming in. And so you weren't going to be able to be like Detroit was or like New York was or all of Chicago when they had all these players. You needed to play in the cap. So how do you do it? And one of the reasons, and the elite goalie was a big part of it because we knew there'd be more parity in the league, Tony. And because there's more parity in the league, there's going to be more 1-goal games, or there's going to be more overtime games, or it's going to lead to shootout games. So if you didn't have an elite goalie in those kinds of situations, you weren't going to win. So that was one of the dominant ones.
Pierre, I'm not going to lie to you. I'm shocked to hear you put, which is the beauty of talking hockey, because it's a matter of opinion, to hear you put Jake Evans in that 7-player profile. But I understand the rationale behind it. Now, Marty St. Louis, I would imagine, is being blown away by Jake Evans thus far this season. And I think Pascal Vincent has already mentioned that he's being blown away by Owen Beck. Yeah. My question to you is, does Owen Beck have a higher ceiling?
Oh, yeah. They're 2 totally different players. So I don't have Owen Beck being a specialist forward. I have Owen Beck being a very useful player on a good team. Jake Evans is a specialist forward because he takes faceoffs, he kills penalty, he can move up and down your lineup. And the key to him is...
Phil Deneau?
Phil had more of a higher ceiling.
Yes.
But very, very similar. And the reason why Jake becomes really important on a good team, he's not going to be a cap buster. So he's going to be able to do all those important things. And it's hard to get that into people's mentality, but you have to be able to find players that can do really important jobs that don't make a whack of money.
So they're going to have to, with that rush, they're going to have to try and get him in under 3.
Yeah, and here's one thing that's really important. When you create the proper culture, and you and Chris Nyland talked about that on Sunday, players want to stay in the proper culture. They're not in a rush to move out of the proper culture. And I think the Canadiens are building the proper culture. You can see just guys sacrificing, not worrying so much about points, but worrying more about winning. And I see that when I watch the Canadiens, and I watch every single game. I wish I could spend more time watching them practice, but I watch every game. And I'm really impressed by the growth in their game week to week.
Pierre, amazing stuff as usual. We gave everyone watching over an hour of Pierre McGuire and the McGuire Report, brought to you by Vago. Amazing stuff. We'll talk to you again. The Canadiens are off for the rest of the week. And as you mentioned, they will host the Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday. And then to finish off the month of November, they host Utah next week on Tuesday. The following night, they're in Columbus. And then that weekend, they'll be in New York and in Boston. So you and I will talk again following the Canadiens and the Utah Hockey Club on Tuesday, November 26th. Guess what? That night, I think we're going to be joined by Max Lapierre too. How's that sound?
That's great. So here's what I'm going to tell you now for you and your listeners. I'll be watching that game in Belfast, Ireland, because I'm going over there starting Sunday. So I'll be doing the show, and I've already checked the internet stuff, and I'll be watching the game, and I'll be ready to go with you.
Are you kidding me or what? It's going to be the wee hours of the morning in Ireland, is it not?
Tony, I made a commitment to you and the people at Vago, and I'm living up to my commitment because I love doing the show, and I'm really grateful. So thank you.
That's unbelievable. Are you going there to golf?
No, I'm going there to work. I'm speaking at a big sports seminar on Friday, a week from this Friday, sponsored by the Odyssey Group, and I'm also going to be there working at the Friendship Four, which has Notre Dame, Jake Evans' old school, Harvard University, Sean Farrell's old school, Merrimack College, Jonathan Kovacevich's school, and Boston University with Luke Tuck, and guess who else? Lane Hutson, Tony. Lane Hutson.
Hey, Pierre, guess what? As you know, my son is in Gibraltar.
Yes.
And I was telling Agnello, I said, Agnello, I got to get away sometime. And he said, yeah, but you host the post-game shows and you host a podcast. And I said to him, I said, so I'll miss a game or two. You just ruined me tonight by saying that, Pierre.
No.
Now he's going to say to me, if Pierre McGuire does it, you have to do it too. And I guess what? I guess I have to do it too. Pierre, good on you. You're a leader. Good stuff.
Love being with you, Tony, and I'm so
Likewise.
grateful to you and Agnello and everybody else at the Sick Podcast. Shane, great job, my man. Great job.
Thank you, Pierre. Have a great night, Pierre. All the best. There you have it. Pierre McGuire, Marinaro. Shout out to Paul Montreal, PEAU, Montreal.com. You can check them out on Instagram. 2 locations. Downtown Montreal is one. The West Island is another. They have several things going on there. One is for hair loss, and they have an ultrasound technology, which is called the TED technology. It's all natural, no injections, and it's 98% success rate for ideal candidates. They also have the latest cosmetic technologies for laser services, injections, fillers, body contouring, facial treatments. PaulMontreal.com, Paul Montreal on Instagram, 514-989-7328. And as far as the hair loss goes, you can have a free consult as well. I want to thank all of you for watching. I hope you thoroughly enjoyed the Sick Podcast with myself, Tony Marinaro, and of course, with the great Pierre McGuire. I want to thank all of our sponsors of the Sick Podcast. Without them, we can't do it the way we do it. Energy Transportation Group is one. Playground is another. Bittt Tibi is another. Accent Insurance Solutions is another. Betway is another. Restaurant Vago is another. Thank you all very, very much. And thank you all of you once again. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please do so. Leave us a 5-star review on Apple. It's our way of feeling the love. For Shane Gameau and Master Control, I'm Marinaro. I'll be back tomorrow night, same time, same place. My guest, Chris Knuckles Nyland. Ciao for now.
And that's a wrap. Hope you don't miss us too much until next time. Follow the Sick Podcast with Tony Marinaro on YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, Google Play, and Apple Podcasts. The Sick Podcast is brought to you by Energy Transportation Group, driven to be different. LaBita.tb, embrace your true nature. And Playground, your premier gaming destination.